When auditing started in the 1930s, it was a reaction to the Great Depression. And to pull us out of that Great Depression, the whole world, we imposed restrictions and controls on the financial sector, but we needed someone to make sure that those controls were being obeyed. So we hired these people called auditors. They were accountants, and they were specialists. They knew what to do, and they gathered all the data to find out if the banks and financial institutions were following the rules. Well, we still do that today. They're mostly CPAs. But in the mid-70s, as technology increased and as the world got smaller and information increased, there was a need for more than that. And so auditors, these financial people, were now asked to look at industry. First the nuclear and the military sector, and then just general manufacturing, and then healthcare and the service sector. But we're looking at the same thing. First, are the controls defined? Secondly, are the controls applied? And that's the way it was up until about the middle 1980s. It's the classic say what you do what you say. But as we moved from the 1980s on into the 90s and especially the turn of the century, we said we need more than that. So question number 3 the auditors address is, do controls work? And the last and final question that auditors of today ask, are controls going to last? Now you may ask yourself, what's so important about controls? Well, all around us we have risk. And risk are these little meanies that prevent the organization from achieving their objectives. So we got all these wonderful objectives that the board of directors and everyone decide this is what we want to do when we grow up. And the risk comes along and zaps them and disrupts them and keeps us from accomplishing those objectives. Well, the controls combat the risk. So we have quality controls in the form of the standards, particularly ISO 9001. We have environmental controls, and that's recorded in the standard 14001, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So controls combat risk, and audits see if those controls are defined, they're applied, they work, and they will continue. That's pretty important. Auditing is fairly simple. Over here, we got all the things we're supposed to be doing. Those are called requirements. Over here, we got all the things we're really doing. And auditors compare the two. Now you're saying, that's inspection. Well, yeah, it is, in that all audits start with conforming and non-conforming data. But auditors take the data and they analyze it. They say, data, talk to me. Tell me what's going on here. And from our analysis of the data, we come up with these things called findings. And then we further analyze the findings to come up with our overall conclusions. So you see, what auditing is doing, it's taking objective information and it's turning it into subjective opinion. And I said that right. Auditors are required to form opinions. Inspectors are not allowed to form opinions. Auditors must form opinions, but it's always based on hard facts, data. Audits can be stressful to the auditor as well as the auditee. So let me talk first about the auditor, the person that's doing the audit. How can you reduce the stress on that? Just like you reduce stress in everyday life, you prepare. If you're prepared and know what you're doing and going to do, you're going to be less stressed. There are actually 9 steps that auditors must go through to prepare properly so it's less stressful. Number one is, why are we doing the audit? We call that the purpose. Number two is, what are we going to look at? Because we can't look at everything. That's called the scope. Number three is the team that we're going to use to do the audit. Rarely should audits be only one person. A team is so much better. Number four is, do we have the authority to do this audit in the first place? If we don't have the authority, we might as well stop. Number five is, what are we going to audit against? What are the criteria that we have? Number six is, what are the processes and activities we're going to be looking at? Number seven, write it all down in a plan and release that plan. Number eight, and this is a big change from the previous, is do intense and in-depth, deep study on the various processes and activities we're fixing to audit. And then number 11, capture all that in customized, detailed checklist questions. Just like when you go to the Safeway store for buying groceries, you need a shopping list. Well, when you go to the audit store, you need a checklist. So if we do all 9 of those steps prior to performing the audit, we as auditors will feel less stressful because we're prepared. There's also stress from the auditee, the victim, if you would. We can reduce that stress by practicing the 5 fingers of friendship. First, we let them know they're going to be audited by giving them a copy of the audit schedule. Secondly, we establish an informal contact with the auditee to start the conversation and build the relationships. Number 3 is we give them a copy of the audit plan, the details, and that's done about a month prior to the audit. Number 4 is we actually give them a copy of the detailed checklist questions. And so they'll use that to do their own self-audit before I come, and everybody benefits. And then finally, when you start the audit and you're in the opening meeting on site, you use the input of the auditee to help you develop the actual detailed schedule of what we're going to look at, who we're going to talk to, when are we going to do this, how are we going to do that. All 5 of those extensions of the hand of friendship will build the trust and relationship and understanding so the stress is reduced on both sides. The report usually will contain findings. Findings are something bad that you discovered and you want to report it. By the way, if it's good, we call those positive practices. A finding is a way to present that information so it's useful for all stakeholders. In the last team meeting on site before you do the closing meeting, the team leader gets a sheet of paper, draws a line down the middle of it, and on one side says good stuff, on the other side says aw shucks. And then everyone in the audit team opens their field notes and we shout out the good things and the bad things each one of us discovered during our part of the audit. And the team leader, acting as scribe, just writes them all down on one side or the other. Now, it is super important that we do no filtering, no sorting, no analysis, nothing. We just want to get the facts, the good facts on one side, the bad facts on the other side. This is called the data dump. Once we've got all the facts on a master list, you fold the sheet in half and you have the bad facts staring up at you. Now you look for patterns. You say, well, gosh, number 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 and 9, they all seem to relate to the same thing. Well, you stack them up on a pile. You say, well, number 5 and 6 and 12 and 19, they relate to a different item. Well, stack them up on a different pile. You say 16, 17, and 19, they relate to both of those issues. Well, replicate them, put them on both piles. This is classic data chunking. What we're looking for is patterns. Because you know, seldom do problems come in ones. That is so unusual. There are patterns that we will see as auditors. So we take those patterns, that big pile of bad facts, and we say, all right, what's the pain? When I say pain, I mean business pain. Cost, production, and risk. This is CPR is what it is. So we say, here's the pain that's resulting from this problem. Now, you shove the pain together with the problem, and you build a cause and effect statement. Because of this, therefore pain. That becomes your finding. You write that at the top of the sheet of paper, and then take your stack of data, bullet, 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 bullet underneath. A reasonable person presented with the same facts will draw the same conclusion. That's called a finding sheet, and that's what appears in the report. If you have been successful in citing pain, the desire to take away that pain on behalf of the auditee is automatic. Now, that's theory, and it's really hard to do that, but it is a reasonable goal, a laudable goal, something we want to attempt, is show the so what with this problem. So we've got two things we need to do. We need to take corrective action on the problem, which is the finding statement at the top of the paper. And then we need to take remedial action for each of the bad facts. That's classically called nonconformance control. Now, here's a key to success. Every organization has a limited amount of energy. You got to spend that energy wisely. If you waste all your energy on the trivial things, the bullets, you got nothing left over for the finding at the top. So we want the action on the facts, the symptoms, if you would, to be low energy. Don't spend a lot of energy. Don't dwell on them. Just do something about it as you would every nonconformance control. Basically, rework, release, repair, or reject. The classic nonconformance. No energy, low energy. We want to focus our energy at the top on the finding statement, and for that we use the corrective action program.